Hafa and welcome to the Guam Congress Building. Thank you for joining us for today's press conference to officially announce History Comes Alive, Lumatla y Historiata, a series of events commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Organic Act of Guam. This event is put on by the Office of the Governor of Guam, the Guam Legislature, the Judiciary of Guam, the U.S. District Court of Guam, the Guam Congressional Office, the Mayor's Council of Guam, and Guam Preservation Trust. This milestone marks not only a moment to reflect on our island's political history, but a time to celebrate our rich heritage and the journey of self-governance that continues today. We are honored to be joined this morning by distinguished leaders from our government of Guam, the Judiciary, and the Mayor's Council, each of whom plays a vital role in bringing this historic celebration to life. We are pleased to acknowledge the following dignitaries and honored guests. From the Office of the Governor of Guam, the Honorable Joshua F. Tenorio, Acting Governor. From the 38th Guam Legislature, the Honorable Speaker Frank Blas Jr. The Honorable Vice Speaker Senator Vicente Anthony Ata. The Honorable Senator Joseph San Augustine. The Honorable Senator Chris Barnett. The Honorable Senator Therese Terlahi. The Honorable Senator Sean Gumatautau. The Honorable Senator Tello Taidagui. The Honorable Senator Chris Duenas. And the Honorable Senator Jesse Lujan. From the Judiciary of Guam, the Honorable Chief Justice Robert Torres Jr. From the U.S. District Court of Guam, the Honorable Chief Judge Francis Tidinko Gatewood. We'd also like to recognize the Honorable Retired Judge Elizabeth Barrett Anderson. From the Mayor's Council of Guam, Joy Jean Arceo, Executive Director. From the Guam Congress Building, Ms. Joanne G. Camacho, Executive Director of the Guam Legislature and Committee Chair. We would also like to recognize the Honorable former Governor of Guam, Eddie Baza-Calvo. Former Senator Judy Wampat. I also see former Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano and Director of the Guam Department of Corrections, Fred Bordalio. We'd also like to recognize Ms. Annette Atta, wife of Vice Speaker Tony Atta. We'd also like to recognize Deputy Chief of Staff from the Office of the Governor, Clinton Rijal. We also have some very special individuals joining us today, the descendants of Carlos P. Taitano, Ms. Linda Taitano Regis, his grandson Victor Lujan, Tyrone Taitano, his son and wife, former Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, the descendants of Antonio B. Wonpat, former Senator Judith Wonpat, once again. Melvin Wonpat, his grandson. We also have descendants of Francisco B. Leon Guerrero, Ms. Rosie Ms. Hilda Duncan, Ms. Josephine Santos, Ms. Mary Rhodes, Amata Hutcherson, descendants of Conception Cruz Barrett, Ms. Jessica Barrett, we also have a birthday celebrant today, August Gus and wife Doll. We'd also like to recognize Baltazar Bordalio and Mike Phillips and the rest of the Bordalio family. We'd also like to recognize the professor of history, Mr. Gus is the professor of history and Chamorro Studies and Micronesian Studies at the University of Guam. My apologies, Dr. Ann Hattori. We'd like to recognize Dr. Hattori and also Ms. Cecilia Perez. Thank you. We'd also like to recognize the sponsors of this occasion, Cortec, the Guam Visitors Bureau, Payless and Calvo's Enterprise, Calvo's Insurance, GTA, Barrett Plumbing, Family Finance, Black Construction, the Bank of Guam, Hilton, Matson, Adat's Funeral Home, and MDWI. To begin, please join me in recognizing the acting governor of Guam, the Honorable Joshua F. Tenorio, to deliver his welcome message.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Half a day. Before I start, I do want to specifically recognize Mrs. Arlene Bordalio, the widow of former Senator Paul J. Bordalio, the son of B.J. Bordalio, and of course, Debbie Bordalio, the daughter of the late Governor Ricardo J. Bordalio and our former Lieutenant Governor and Congresswoman Madeline Bordalio, who have also joined us. History truly is coming alive, and with all of the young interns and young legislative staff here together with the descendants of really the constructors and the formulators of our civilian government. When we look back in history and think about all of the sacrifice that the people of Guam made to send B.J. Bordalio and F.B. Leon Guerrero to our nation's capital, to campaign for the human rights and civil rights of our people, to see historic figures that did different things. Chong Barrett going out to college, becoming a lawyer, being one of the first breakers of the glass ceiling for women in government. When we see the late Speaker Carlos P. Taitano and how he was able to use his instincts and his wisdom to create an event that allowed the nation to recognize and understand what was happening on Guam, it is truly remarkable. It's my great honor to welcome all of you to this press conference. And on behalf of our governor, who is leading our Guam delegation at the Micronesian Island Forum, and our administration, I want to thank each of you for being here to honor and celebrate this historic milestone of our island's history, heritage, and progress. Just about 75 years ago, the Organic Act laid the foundation for a government on Guam by and for our people. It gave our families U.S. citizenship, established the Guam legislature, and began a critical shift to let Guam start governing itself. While we recognize that the Organic Act of Guam is a beginning and not an end, it represents an essential, critical chapter in our island's ongoing journey toward true self-determination. Today is not just about why laws are important, it's about why our people are important most of all. The pioneers like Carlos P. Taitano and Baltazar Berdalio, Wampat, Calvo, and others who advocated for Guam's civil rights, and the generations of leaders, families, and Manumku who have carried our identity, culture, and aspirations forward. This celebration reflects the work of many hands, from the Guam legislature to Guampedia, the Guam Preservation Trust, our judiciary, federal court, and countless community partners. We invite our entire community to take part in the events leading up to and on August 1st, from proclamations and educational exhibits to the History Comes Alive Festival at the Plaza. These are the opportunities to reflect, engage, and celebrate the rich history of our island and our people. Guam's story continues to unfold, and it is our responsibility, those of us here, to ensure that the future generations know where we came from and how much further we can go together. Let me just close by saying July 1st is the start of a very somber month for all of us. Most of us here come from a heritage where our parents and our grandparents, we are the descendants of the wartime generation, truly the greatest generation. And as we go forward each and every day, let's remember the sacrifice made by the people of Guam. Over 10% of our population was lost during World War II. A great hardship for all of us, but let's also celebrate the remarkable accomplishment that our people made by picking themselves up, rebuilding our island, making it into one of the best places to live in this entire world. Si Diyos maasi, and God bless everybody.
Thank you, Acting Governor Tenorio, for those powerful and inspiring words. Now, to share his perspective and vision for this historic celebration is the Speaker of the 38th Guam Legislature, the Honorable Frank F. Blosh, Jr.
Thank you very much, and buenas and half a day to everybody. Welcome to your house. Welcome to the House of the People. Welcome to the Guam Congress building. I sit here actually amongst many giants, and I also amongst colleagues that we working together, we can continue to do the work for the people of Guam. We're sitting in a historic site where many icons, many individuals who have taken us to where we are today have stood before their colleagues to be able to speak about the liberties and the freedoms and the powers that we want for our people to have. The likes of Uncle Carlos Taitano, Baltazar Berdalio, Antonio Wampat, F.B. Leon Guerrero, Eduardo Calvo, and many others. I'm humbled that they were here before me, and I can stand on their shoulders to be able to continue to do the work that they wanted for our people. This month marks a very solemn and special occasion for Guam. Not only do we honor or do we remember 81 years ago when our island was besieged by an enemy force and our people were enslaved. And whereas the acting governor said there were 10% of our population was lost. But more so, we had 21,000 Chamorros who survived and wanted to persevere and wanted the best for the island. And a few years later, in this very hall, we had individuals who wanted to continue with that freedom, who wanted to continue to ensure that there's recognition for a people that have been around for centuries and that people that are going to continue for centuries. So over the next 30 days, there are going to be many celebrations, many commemorations, many ways for us to remember, to rejoice, and to reflect on what has happened over the last 81 and 75 years. Take your pick. All of this was to make our island a much better place. So on behalf of my colleagues that are here, again, welcome to your house, and we're going to enjoy the rest of the year, and on August 1st, we're going to have a wonderful celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Speaker Blas, for your continued leadership and commitment to preserving our island's history. At this time, we have a video from Guam's delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives, the Honorable James C. Moylan. Delegate Moylan has been a strong advocate for Guam on Capitol Hill and continues to be a voice for our island in the nation's capital, working to ensure that Guam's story, people, and needs are represented at the federal level.
Greetings from our nation's capital. 75 years ago, the Organic Act was signed into law, marking a pivotal turning point in our island's history, one that gave our rise to our legislature, affirmed our civil rights, and allowed our people to begin shaping our own destiny. Our story since then has been one of resilience and progress. That's why this year's theme, History Comes Alive, couldn't be more fitting, because the Organic Act isn't just a document. It's a living legacy that endures in all of our people. Today, I'm proud to share that our journey continues. In honor of this historic anniversary, I will be introducing legislation as your delegate in Congress to ensure regular, meaningful dialogue between Guam and the federal government. Just as the Northern Marianas has their 902 talks, this bill will guarantee that Guam has a seat on the table when it comes to issues impacting our future. This bill is about making sure we have a voice in shaping our island for the next 75 years and beyond. This is how we keep our story alive, not just by remembering the past, but by building upon it with purpose and conviction. I believe some of the best chapters of Guam's story still lie ahead, and this bill ensures that we won't just be a witness to that future, but an integral part in shaping it for our children and all other generations to come. Si Dios Masi, adios.
Sizuas Ma'asi to Delegate Moylan for his continued support and presence as we mark this historic occasion. We will now hear from two of Guam's most respected judicial leaders, beginning with Chief Justice Robert J. Torres of the Supreme Court of Guam.
Hafa and good morning, everyone. Nearly 75 years ago, President Truman signed the Organic Act of Guam into law, establishing our civil government and granting U.S. citizenship to the people of Guam. This was not just a legal milestone, it was a defining moment in our island's long journey towards greater self-governance. For decades prior, Guam was governed by the U.S. Navy with little regard to the democratic process or democratic norms. The Organic Act changed that. It gave us a civilian government, legislative authority, an executive branch, and crucially, the framework for a local judiciary. It was and remains our foundational document, serving the role of a constitution for Guam in the absence of one created and ratified by our own people. But make no mistake, that journey has not been linear. For the judiciary, it took 24 years after the Organic Act for the Court Reorganization Act to create the Superior Court of Guam and the Supreme Court of Guam. And it wasn't until 2004 that the Organic Act was amended to confirm the Supreme Court as the highest court in the judicial branch and create a unified judiciary, free from federal oversight and equal to our counterparts in the states. Today, the Supreme Court of Guam interprets the Organic Act and its associated Bill of Rights independently with respect for our island's history, our culture, and our values. Last year, in People versus Adriatico, we held that our court, just like any other state Supreme Court, has the power to give fuller effect to the protections that are enshrined in the Organic Act. We emphasized while the Organic Act is a federal legislation, our interpretation must reflect our distinctive identity and aspirations for justice. We continue to navigate the limitations of federal territorial law. The people of Guam have twice attempted to draft and ratify their own constitution, efforts that ultimately fell short. But until that day comes, the Organic Act remains our constitutional compass, and the judiciary is committed to safeguarding its promises and expanding its meaning in ways that best serve the people of Guam. As part of our anniversary celebration of the Organic Act, the Judiciary will be offering public guided tours of the Guam Historic Courthouse every Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to 12 through August 1st. The building, which was completed in 1968, was the first judicial building funded by Guam's civil government. And many of the building's original features have been artfully and carefully preserved. From the locally sourced greenstone that is present at its entrance to the basket weave design on its facade. Inside, you'll still find the original woodwork, the gallery windows, and a 55-foot mosaic that tells the story of Guam, a story of strength, identity, and progress. The courthouse stands not just as a historic structure, but as a symbol of what it means to have a justice system led by our own people, under our own laws. Its restoration has been a labor of respect, collaboration, and care. So if you're interested in a tour, you can book it online or go to our website and you'll be able to find how to get there, or just walk in anytime Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to noon. You're welcome to walk through the halls, hear the stories, and reflect on how far we have come and the responsibility we all share to keep moving forward. On behalf of the Judiciary of Guam, thank you, and happy 75th anniversary to the Organic Act of Guam.
And now we'll hear from Chief Judge Francis Tydinko Gatewood of the U.S. District Court of Guam.
Thank you, Nsidzus Masi. Half a day, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank First Lady Joanne Camacho, co-chair, along with Arlene Santos, both of them for having invited the District Court of Guam to be a part of this very auspicious ceremony, and also the particular events that will occur on August 1 of this year. As was stated, 75 years ago, in 1950, August 1, a civil government of Guam became a reality with the passage of the Organic Act. The Organic Act, which created the United States Federal District Court of Guam and invested it with original jurisdiction over cases arising under federal law, original jurisdiction over cases not transferred by the Guam legislature to our local courts, which I'm proud to say I was proud to be a part of that as a Superior Court judge and a Supreme Court justice. And it also vested our courts with an appellate jurisdiction to be determined by the Guam legislature. Congress would later expand the court's jurisdiction to include what we call diversity jurisdiction. On August 1, 1950, we will celebrate not only the 75th anniversary of the Organic Act of Guam, but also the establishment of the District Court of Guam. We will celebrate 75 years of United States citizenship granted to the people of Guam by the same governing document. When First Lady Joanne Camacho called me a couple times, she said, Francis, wouldn't it be really special if we could hold the naturalization ceremony here in this hall? because we initially discussed, she and I initially discussed having it at the District Court of Guam, where we have it every month, twice a month. And I thought about that, and I said, it would be a great idea, and I'll tell you why in a second. As a tribute to the 75 years of United States citizenship, our district court is honored to host a special naturalization ceremony on the 4th floor of our courtroom and welcome our newest fellow Americans on Friday, August 1 at 9:30 a.m. This commemorative naturalization ceremony, as I've just indicated, will be held right here in the historic halls of this Guam Congress building, which is also, this is the reason why I think it's very special, which is also the home to the original Federal District Court of Guam. So my colleague, the Honorable Michael J. Berdalio, who's my magistrate judge, he and I will be presiding over this special naturalization ceremony. We are working closely with the legislative staff here, along with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Office, and we are hoping to get 75 applicants for citizenship to be sworn in on the 75th anniversary of the Organic Act of Guam and the District Court of Guam. There are citizens that come from all over the world. Believe me, I mean, every ceremony that we have, when Judge Berdalio and I preside over these ceremonies every month, we see citizens from the Philippines, Japan, Korea, China, the FSM states, Australia, so forth. I mean, they're just from all over the world, and so it's going to be exciting to have them fill these halls. We also will be joined by the Honorable Congressman James Moylan. He always wishes to come in and be a part of our ceremony. And part of another exciting event is we have our community outreach service, where we've invited the United States Passport Office, the Social Security Office, and the Guam Election Commission to ensure that the citizens who come in that day will also be able to apply for those particular benefits. And that's part of our outreach initiative, to assist them in getting their documents and information necessary to practice some of their rights here as a United States citizen. I am honored, along with Judge Berdalio and the entire District Court of Guam, to be a part of this ceremony. And again, I'd like to thank your co-chairs, the Honorable First Lady Joanne Camacho and her co-chair Arlene Santos, for inviting us to be a part of this. Sidzus Masi, everyone.
Thank you both for your continued dedication to justice and to the story of Guam's legal legacy. As we commemorate the Organic Act, we also reflect on the leaders who helped shape our political identity. One of those pioneering figures was the late Carlos Pangilinan Taitano, a key voice in the early fight for Guam's civil government. To share reflections on his legacy, we are honored to welcome his grandson, Mr. Victor Lujan, to deliver remarks on behalf of the Taitano family.
Half-a-day distinguished guests. My name is Victor Lujan, as you said. I'm the eldest grandson of Carlos Pangilinan Taitano. There are 5 of us, my brother Dana and cousins Carlos, Livia, and Catherine. All of us grew up with my grandfather telling us countless stories of the struggles of the people of Guam under naval governance. As you can only imagine, the local population was relegated, and I use that word specifically, relegated, because of the nature of how military works in terms of its mission's efficiency, whatever its mission may be. Just that and that alone is what mattered and was dictated as such. Fortunate enough to travel to Honolulu, Hawaii in 1936 to visit his brother and go to school, he quickly recognized the disparity of how people are treated. He was shocked, confused, totally taken aback. A testament to the environment he grew up by naval governance in Guam. Guam and its people were relegated to a construct that suited the military. He took advantage of finishing high school and eventually graduated from University of Hawaii. I believe within this time frame, what he experienced fostered my grandfather's aspirations for equality for the people of Guam within the United States of America's sphere. But don't take my word for it. You can listen and hear firsthand from his words by watching Cornerstone, of which is posted within the Guam Legislature's YouTube page. The interview was actually done within these halls before this renovation. Just type Cornerstone and listen. Feel what it was like before the Organics Act. One lesson I learned about the Organics Act from my grandfather is that it was part of a journey to resolve Guam's political status and secure the right to self-determination. He hoped many things for Guam, and particularly to live long enough to see the day when Guam is no longer a colony. He passed away at the age of 92 with that wish unfulfilled. Even so, my grandfather and leaders of his generation demonstrated that even if the odds are against you, even if the powers against you seem impossible to overcome, you can change things for the better. If my grandfather and his peers could, then maybe, and I firmly believe we can, just maybe we can achieve this goal in my lifetime. To me, that example is Carlos Pangilinan Taisano's true legacy. So to those of you who have not watched Cornerstone, I'm sure many of you, especially if you've worked in these halls, I did, and it would literally spook me because they would play it in the TV around here, and I just kind of jump every once in a while because to hear his voice, very moving. So those of you who have not watched Cornerstone, I implore you to do so. Watch it again and again as I have. Research and read what other great leaders of our island have done to this end as well. Let yourself be inspired and inspire others to act and elevate and not relegate our people of Guam. Thank you.
Sizuas Maasi, Mr. Lujan, for that heartfelt tribute to your grandfather and for reminding us of the people behind the progress. Next, we are pleased to have Mr. Mike Phillips join us today on behalf of the family of the late Baltazar J. Bordallo, another instrumental figure in Guam's political development. Mr. Phillips will share a few words in honor of Mr. Bordallo's contributions and his role in helping lay the groundwork for the Organic Act and Guam's self-governance.
Thank you. I've been reminded 2 minutes would be good, so we'll end up with maybe a little bit less or more. But I'm really pleased that Vic spoke the way he did, because that's my sentiment. That's my family's sentiment. I'm pretty sure it's F.B. Leon Guerrero's family sentiment. And before FB and BJ, may call them that for short, went and ended up in Congress, there's a whole lot of things happening on Guam. They were just representatives. You can be extremely proud of them. I've watched Speaker Taitano's special, and I think I've read everything that has ever been testified to before Congress, and I've yet to find anything, maybe I missed it, I haven't found anything where I can say our leaders chickened out, our leaders sold out. In fact, every single time, they have so much respect. And so, quite frankly, when a stupid question is asked, they're polite and they respond in a very polite way, but in a very, very educated and solid manner. And so, the way I distinguish my grandfather and all the rest, I am very humbled to be in front of F.B. Leon Guerrero's family, because he was amazing. Even just the one presentation before Congress, amazing. And what they may not have shared with everybody is there were other conversations. There was no stenographer. A lot of dirty words went back and forth because they were accused of all kinds of stuff. I know my grandfather was accused of being a communist, and that was because he refused to work for free for the Navy two weeks a year. Every male was required to do that. And so, and I'm sure he's not the only one that said no. And so whether you're talking about that or other things, that education came from, I don't want to call them ancestors, because it came from his dad and all the people that came before them. And that led up to their presentation, which was really representative of how the Guam Congress felt. It really was. They offered them the ability to come back to Guam, and they said it straight out as heroes. They were going to come back and deliver nationalism, And I don't think the two individuals really knew what that meant, but they weren't stupid. And they said, no, you either give us everything or nothing. And so they offered them in a way saying, you realize you could go back as heroes. And they said, no, we go back and we tell our people the truth. But that conversation didn't end there. They said, wait a minute, don't you be starting trouble out there. I think that's very telling. And I'll get to that point in 1 second if I don't forget it. So they said, again, no, we have an obligation to tell the truth. That's all we can do. Now, why is that significant? It's because we pretend and they pretend that if we do something like a walkout, it's going to have no effect. We pretend that if our senators today walked out, that there would be no change. Of course there would be. Many years ago, I was in front of students at Sanchez, and I told them, decades ago, you walk out, you go to the legislature, you'll get your contract like in 2 weeks. Of course, they've never done that, and the legislature's never done that. There was a mini walkout, which I was kind of part of in 1995. That's different. But seriously, since then, the celebration has been of the Organic Act and not its history. In front of our justices, we may debate Madison, the Federalists, things like that. But nobody debates the history of the Organic Act. Nobody debates how it came about and why our, call them ancestors, focused on the legislature. They knew that the legislature is the most important branch of government. Today, we talk about, let's just cut it in half, cut their pay, maybe meet once a year. They're rolling in their grave when we're talking about that because they understood government better than the people they were speaking to, and they made it very clear. And I'm very proud of everything my grandfather said and did. He didn't quit. Into his 70s, he was showing up at public hearings and speaking, and it would always be about certain subjects, so of course it was limited to that, but you could tell he didn't change his mind. My favorite quote, though, and I'll end with this, is when they accused BJ and FB of being surrounded by foreign countries. And so I believe as FB responded, with all due respect, isn't every country surrounded by a foreign country? And of course, silence. And that's the way that went. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, I promise to end with this, that's everywhere. You could have a doctoral degree just on this information, just on that. And you probably won't even cover everything because we have so much history that leads up to the Organic Act. Sadly, we don't have much history after the Organic Act. That's just a transition. In fact, it wasn't universally accepted when it was passed. And there's some in our audience today that are not very pleased with the fact that it wasn't written by the Chamorros, the people of Guam. And so it's really transition. But if you think about their impatience, they told the U.S. Congress that it was better to be under Spain. And the record will confirm that. Better times under Spain. So, of course, the congressman got all defensive and said, well, you know, you got this and you got that. How would you be able to ever survive? And I think it's my grandfather that said, we have the same soil, but under the Spanish, they were given more rights. Not enough, but many more rights. When A.B. Wampat, F.B. Leon Guerrero, B.J. Berdalio, and others, I'm sure Assemblyman Cruz, Tungagat, didn't do well afterwards. You paid the price. And they told the congressman, when you cross the naval governor, you pay the price. Now, each of them did that. I still think the most symbolic crossing of the naval governor is when then Speaker A.B. Wampat signed not the subpoenas, but the equivalent of an arrest warrant. That was it. The governor hit the roof, came in, and our people didn't chicken out. They walked out. And that's the way things take place. We don't roll over. And that's been our history. That's been our success. I encourage everybody to spend as much time as you can reading our history. It's amazing. And I think you'll realize, or maybe conclude like I have, that the only way to deal with the colonizer is like somebody that you don't deal with them as you're colonized, you deal with them as a colonizer. not colonized. And until you accept that, you've got to fight. And there's nothing wrong with it. The most distinguished people on Guam fought. That's just the way it was. And so I'm very proud to be here with my family and on behalf of the Berdalios. But I didn't want to leave just saying, oh, we're celebrating this and that. It definitely was something to celebrate. It was a transition. And we kind of left out that part. We've kind of just revolved around the Organic Act, and that's what we have. And it's not. It's such an opportunity. The path is still there, and we just have to fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for sharing those meaningful reflections and helping us keep the legacy of Mr. Berdalio alive. To provide closing remarks with an overview of the exciting events planned throughout the History Comes Alive series, we welcome former First Lady Joanne Camacho, Executive Director of the 38th Guam Legislature and Chairperson for the Planning Committee.
Thank you, Alana. Hafaday, and thank you all for being here. It is my honor to co-chair, along with Arlene Santos, this meaningful celebration, History Comes Alive, in commemoration of the 75th anniversary of our Organic Act of Guam. This series of events is more than just a historical milestone. It's almost remembering those who paved the way, encouraging our community, and celebrating the identity of our people. The series of events, the commemoration officially begins August 1st with a flag-raising ceremony at the Governor's Complex in Adelup. From there, we will continue with the naturalization ceremony and the Judiciary court tour, as well as the Guam Museum and the Guam Congress building. The day culminates with the History Comes Alive Festival at the Plaza de España from 12:45 p.m. to 8 p.m., featuring cultural performances, music, food, vendors, educational activities, and more. It is a celebration for the whole family and the entire island community. As we reflect on 75 years of the Organic Act, we also pay tribute to the leaders who helped make it possible. The walkout of 1949 gives life to the Organic Act of 1950. We are proud to acknowledge and welcome the descendants of the historical figures. Carlos Pangilinan Taitano, Baltazar J. Berdalio, F.B. Leon Guerrero, Concepcion Cruz Barrett. Their courage and commitment helped shape the foundation of the modern government, and we thank their families for joining us here today. This commemoration is made possible through the generous support of the partners and sponsors. We share our vision to honor Guam's history and educate the future generations. We give special thanks to the Guam Preservation Trust. To the grant provided by Guam Economic Development Authority, Guam Preservation Trust has helped bring this celebration to life through cultural preservation, educational exhibits, and historic storytelling. Their partnership has been instrumental in creating meaningful, encouraging components to the community. We also like to thank Cortec International, the Guam Visitors Bureau, GTA, Payless Supermarket, and the Cowboy Enterprises, Bank Pacific, Matson, MDWI, Bank of Guam, Barrett Plumbing, Addis Funeral Home, Family Finance, Black Construction, and Hilton Guam Resort and Spa. To each of you, Sizu'us Ma'asi for believing in the power of history and community. We look forward to seeing all of you to this series of events, and especially on August 1st, as we come together to celebrate our journey. Let us continue to honor the past, celebrate the present, and inspire the future. Let's bring our history to life. Sizu'us Ma'asi, may God bless you and God bless Guam.
Thank you, Executive Director Camacho, for outlining what promises to be a meaningful and memorable series of events for our island. At this time, we will open the floor to members of the media for any questions regarding today's announcements and upcoming events. We kindly ask media members to state their name and the organization they represent before presenting their questions. And I believe you are welcome to take the mic.
Afide Pauly Suba, Glimpses of Guam. As we commemorate the 75th anniversary of the signing of the Organic Act, which laid the foundation for civil government in Guam, do you believe this framework is still sufficient to meet the needs and aspirations of our people today, especially in light of ongoing conversations about self-determination and full self-governance? Acting Governor, you said this is only a beginning and not an end.
I think that that was a point also made by both Mr. Phillips and Mr. Lujan. Let me first say, though, that a lot of us, part of our identity is vested in what happened with the Organic Act with the extension of U.S. citizenship. That is a very, very important thing to recognize. And I always say that one of the best things about being an American is that we're able to fully speak about things that are unsettled and remain unsettled. And and a very big thing, of course, is the political status of our island. I think people have different viewpoints about political status, but I think all of us know that there are big limitations. I mean, the most obvious one is that our men and women, the sons and daughters of Guam, have been called out to war, and they cannot even vote for the President of the United States. That is such a very thing that remains in our face as an example of unfinished business. The Guam legislature and in their past leadership have set a course out for us to determine what political status and a process for us to educate our people. And that work remains unresolved. But at the same time, we have to recognize that the U.S. courts have made decisions that have limited the local statutes' direction for us in getting the votes for that. And so I would say that there remains a very big job that our delegate has to have in Congress, providing some support and U.S. Public law assistance for us if we're going to stay on the course that our local legislature had set out for us. So I would say that, of course, we, as others have said, this is a time to celebrate and embrace who we are as Chamorros and Guamanians, the rights and privileges that we have as citizens, especially given the circumstances in the continental United States and abroad, but to recognize that there still remains some unfinished business at the table of Guam.
Thank you very much for being here today and inviting the media the opportunity to ask questions on this very auspicious moment and celebration. This 75th anniversary of the Organic Act is a very momentous event that occurred in our island's history, and this celebration today and then moving forth from August 1st forward is going to really bring to light for all of us here on this island, what this act has really meant for us. But as Pauly had mentioned this morning, and I'm sorry, my name is Walter Joe with the Guam Daily Post. As Pauly had mentioned this morning, and as you all had hinted or mentioned already this morning, especially with those who have come before us, saying that this is just the beginning, right? This is a transition for seeing through with what many of us here on this island look forward to in establishing and solidifying our status with the United States. My question to you folks this morning is, where are we within respect to this momentum, right? To this movement, especially in the current situation that we are today versus where we were 75 years ago. Obviously, there have been some activities, some events that have happened during the meantime. What are we looking forward to with respect to either moving forward or continuing the status quo, as some had mentioned, with respect to furthering our political status, or whether it is to proceed further with the Commission on Decolonization, with the options on looking at either statehood, free association, or moving forward with independence, if that's what we want. So are we going to be doing that? And what is the momentum moving forward after August 1st in ensuring that for those who are really wanting to see us really move and make things happen? As we know, it's been the past several years where things have slowed down a bit because of certain legal barriers for what some of our forebears and others have looked forward to in proceeding with decolonization. So my question for you folks today is, what can you say in respect to either having an NGO provide for moving on, or doing a status with respect to our legislature on getting things to move forward? Thank you.
All right. Let me first say that please excuse the two members of the Judiciary from that question. It's not appropriate for them to answer that. As we look back, when we go forward, we always have to look back, right? When we're trying to figure out where we're going. And 75 years has been a dramatic amount of growth and development for the government of Guam itself. Chief Justice mentioned how later on federal legislation was able to establish the island courts and then become later on a third co-equal branch of government. We had the Organic Act on August 1st, 1950. We didn't have our first elected governor until the 70s, right? So I think we should recognize that, of course, there's been some growth for sure. I think that, but to be frank, the path forward is it's not very clear. We have local laws that direct the Decolonization Commission to go down a path that the U.S. court decision has prohibited them from going. And so that has to be confronted by the entire leadership of the island. And then, of course, when we make the decisions, we have to talk, there's some realities we have to talk about. I don't think that U.S. citizenship is a nuance, right? U.S. citizenship is a very important topic as applied to any of the three political status options that our local statute directs us to look at, and of course compels the people of Guam to consider. Who is going to vote? The federal court case has decided that the local statute and the posture that has been in place for 40 years is not going to be legally supported by the government of Guam. For an NGO to step up, that is for an NGO to come up with, because the government is not an NGO. We have a statutory responsibility to follow the laws, not only of ourselves, but of the United States. So I would just say that the path, it's not clear to me, myself also, about what path we're going forward. And that's because we have to reconcile the decisions made by the U.S. courts with the statutes that our local leaders have enacted that have set the posture we're currently on. Thank you.
I think along those lines, one of the things, first off, I want to appreciate the presentations by the grandsons of some of the icons. Attorney Phillips had stated basically that this is a transition. It's not so much a change. And let's go back 75 years as to what had happened and why it occurred. Our island was about 5-6 years just coming out of a war. And obviously there were many things that our people at that time had experienced prior to the war, and now after the war, they were exposed to a whole new era and a whole new type of governance that, as was stated, at one point in time, it was compared to the Spanish rule and how much more freer that it was. So when we look at the mindset as to what had happened 75 years ago, you can appreciate what had occurred in basically their struggle and their pursuit for equality and for parity. What does that mean today? And that has been a long struggle for the last basically 75 years of what that means for our people and for the governance, our not just our self-governance, but for our future. And as the governor had stated, there are still outstanding issues that have to be resolved before we can even decide a path forward. But I think at the same time, when there's a whole question with regards to decolonization and whether our status will be, you got to separate what is mindset versus mandate. And if the mindset is that you're colonized, then you're colonized. Okay? But there are things that can do mandate that can help you to be able to break and free from that and chart your own course. So I think that's going to be the challenge. That's not just the challenge here in this hall, this legislature, as we continue to try to set policy, but also in the community. Is that we got to recognize that we're a proud people. We're people that have been that are resilient, that have been strong, and as a unified community, we can overcome things. As small as we are, we can overcome things. So, and then as Vic had stated here, and he wanted to emphasize this, relegating. Don't relegate, let's not relegate ourselves to being inferior. That's the challenge, and I guess that's the hope that occurred 75 years ago that we want to continue and that we want to project into the future, is don't relegate yourself to be colonized. Let's stand above that and let's move forward with what we've got and be proud of that.
If I may, Speaker, just add to that. This topic came up once in court with the late Judge John Pinko. It's one of the few times I think he agreed with me by just remaining silent, because I said, with all due respect, Your Honor, the United States does not have a monopoly on democracy. And so there's an implication, and the words are said, and I know they're not meant this way, but you realize the United States gave us a jury trial? They didn't give us a jury trial. They prevented us from having jury trials until 1972. We think the United States gave us the governorship. They didn't give us the governorship. They prevented us from electing our own elected officials until 1970. We actually were in a democratic process. Whatever process we were in, it was ours. But it's not like they gave it to us. They prevented us from doing every single thing. The same group, ladies and gentlemen, that took all the land. And that's who you're dealing with, the Department of Navy. So to think that they gave us something in 1950 and celebrating it, no, we took as much as we could. There's a lot of lessons to learn with regard to why the Chamorros chose the legislature. They could have fought for something else first, but the most important thing was the legislature. But with regard to the route, it's easy for me because I just look at history, and whether it's FB and BJ or the Chamorros before them or the Chamorros after them, when the Congress walked out, they didn't all, like FB and BJ, jump on a boat and spend 2 weeks going to D.C. They didn't have to. And Speaker Taitano is to credit for the new method of getting information out. But the point is, while it spooked Harry Truman, it provoked the Congress into acting. And since then, as far as even when I was a little kid, everybody went to Congress. So they're either all wrong, and I don't understand how they could be wrong. They spent their lives doing this, and we're missing it, or they're correct, and we should follow them. Because back then, what it took FB and BJ to get to Congress, and what it took, for example, in 1917 and earlier with petitions to get to Congress, really took, as they say, an act of Congress. I mean, it was very, very difficult. To get in to see the President of the United States had nothing to do with our cause, because my grandfather knew somebody in New York who made the phone call. That's the truth, and that's the way it works. So the only path is the path to Congress. And I know we feel bad that, wait a minute, how's it self-determination if we don't just do it on our own? Well, you're dealing with the colonizer. And so that's what happens. That's what the Filipinos did, and they did very well. Whatever the choice is secondary to the fact that it needs to be our choice. So when they recognize, okay, you make the choice. You're going to make the right choice, right? That's not part of the question. And it shouldn't be part of the dialogue today. It should be given that right, and then you decide. But ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe, mostly because of history, but even with the recent court actions, there's no other way other than to go to Congress, and there's nothing to be shy of. There are a few people, and still some people here, I think, that did go to Congress. And when you go to Congress to lobby for Bill 103, you know, you have Delegate Moylan and others that might see you. But when you go there under the cloud of political status, the red carpet is rolled out because they have that international obligation. They must. They didn't finish what the treaty said they had to do in 1898. They didn't finish that part. Congress was supposed to decide. This is not a status. This is just an interim thing. But then, fortunately for us, because of the UN Charter that they're also part of, a certain process needs to take place. The Native American Indians, the First Nations, they don't have that benefit. Slaves didn't have that benefit, but we have that benefit. And the only way that we're going to be able to benefit from it is to involve Congress. And that's the way we go. And I'll tell you, based on the way our representatives have performed in Congress before, I'm very comfortable going to Congress. There's just no chance that anybody there can out-talk any of our representatives with the proper background. There's just no way, because there's no excuse for what's going on. There is no excuse for what's going on today, except that we're accepting it.
Thank you. We have time to take one more question from the media.
Hafaday, Destiny Cruz-Langus with KUAM News. Attorney Mike Phillips, you mentioned that the Organic Act was established and it did create a transition and a pathway forward to fight. So I'm curious, what could be done to expand the rights of our people of Guam and also to include their voices?
And I'll defer to the other speakers, but I want to add one thing. It was done quick, but it was done carefully. They made sure no jury trials. We don't want the natives making those kind of decisions. I believe there was also, I could be wrong, the Second Amendment wasn't very important to them back then. You know how important the Second Amendment is to Americans, right? It's probably more important these days than the First Amendment. And you got to wonder, when you look at that, boy, it's interesting. They left this out for us. They left this out for us very carefully, very consistent with the perception that the Navy was giving Congress, that these people out there, you know, they're, not sure if we can trust these guys. And most people know they were telling Congress we don't even speak English, as if that matters. But the point is, you know, things like that were baseless, number one, and then criticizing our people for not working 2 free weeks a year for them. And I can go on and on. That's why I said I'm gonna defer to the other speakers. But you analyze, just lay out the original Organic Act with the Organic Act maybe we have today, or the Constitution of the United States. And wouldn't it have been simple just to kind of copy it over? They didn't do that. They were very careful to leave out certain rights, which we've struggled and won a number of them. I mean, even electing your own governor, really? Is that something that is special? Having a judiciary? I mean, really? Those are fundamental parts of democracy. They were carefully left out, intentionally left out. And so, yeah, it's very much a transition, and it's still a transition today. You can't have democracy without the consent of the governed. And it appears that, they don't want to give the consent of the governed. And now, although I don't believe we're colonized yet, we're very close to it, we're accepting that we have a status that some people might say, but it's a good one, but it's not yours. And so, it's just like me showing up to dinner at your house and deciding what's for dinner. I mean, that's a little bit too much. And so the fact that I'm there, you decide, right? That's it. And that's the way it's got to be. It's got to be a decision by our people. Until that happens, it's not democracy because you don't have the consent of the governed. There really doesn't appear to me to be any reason why they're holding off on that. One last point, and I know we say that, but this time I mean it. The NGO is as equivalent as me and my friends going out there taking a vote, passing it on to Speaker Bloss and saying, we've decided that Bill 604 will pass. It will have maybe even more clout, because I like Speaker Bloss and we're good friends. So, but the NGO, no. And it'll be another slap in their face. They got to be asking, how come these people don't know how to deal with the situation of a colonizer and the colonized? You come together. That's the way it is. And that's powerful to be able to bring the colonizer to the table. You can't bring anybody to the table for Bill 101. They won't even show up. You're fortunate if you get to meet with the key people. But when it comes to political status, oh man, now don't get me wrong, half of it may be a charade, but it happens. I mean, it really, really happens. And it's very different from lobbying for a bill. So the fact that, some people went to court or decided to, we were going to hold our own election, that was frustration by not having the success that we're entitled to. But that doesn't mean give up. You pound on these guys until they have to do it. We did it before. Now I ask you, do you think if the legislature walked out, or maybe even joined by the governor, don't you think Congress would say, what's the problem? I do. I really do. I mean, that's the way it was done before.
Thank you. Media partners, if you have any additional questions for our panelists, I'm sure there'll be the opportunity afterward. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Very quickly, with everything I've heard today, I would just like to put this out to our leaders. Consider dual citizenship.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, media partners, if you have any additional questions for our panelists, I'm sure the opportunity to ask them will be there after the press conference. At this time, we'd like to ask you all to please remain seated. We'll eventually be inviting everyone up to join our dignitaries for a photo to commemorate today's announcements. Okay, we're doing that. But media partners, please continue to share the event calendar, and we will be sharing any additional event flyers and advertisements as they arise. As we get ourselves organized up here, I just want to say on behalf of the organizing committee, thank you again for attending this momentous occasion and for your continued support as we honor 75 years of the Organic Act of Guam. Let us continue to Lumatla y Historiata, bring our story to life. Si Zeus Maasi. Everyone, if we can, I don't think my mic is hot. It's on. Oh, there we go. Everyone, if we can have you move forward and fill the seats up front, I think that would make for a much nicer photo. Feel free to do that at this time. Thank you. I think we have a few more seats up front that we'd like to fill. I'll try to even out the sides of the aisle here. Is that better? Have a wonderful day, everyone. I hear there's cake.